Welcome to another episode of Delta Waterfowl's The Voice of the Duck Hunter podcast. I'm your host, Joel Brice, and today we have a true legend in the world of waterfowl hunting joining us, Jim Ronquest. Jim is a former world duck calling champion, a trailblazer in the industry, and the current vice president of development for Drake Waterfowl. Jim's extensive career includes more than 25 years with Rich and Tone Calls, where he became a household name among duck hunters through his charismatic personality and his hosting of the popular RNTV television show. Jim is also known for helping foster strong relationships between hunters and wildlife biologists in his home region. Since April of 2022, Jim has spearheaded Drake's innovations in hunting gear, strengthened its corporate partnership with Delta, and produced engaging media content. He also played a pivotal role in shaping Delta Waterfowl's Grand National, our first ever double reed duck calling championship, which was held in July in Baton Rouge during Delta's Duck Hunters Expo. It was there that I caught up with Jim the day after the contest conclusion. Stay tuned as we dive into Jim's remarkable career, his vision for the future of waterfowl hunting, and his passion for conservation and mentorship. Let's get started. Jim Ronquest, welcome to the Delta Waterfowl Podcast.
Man, thanks for having me. I've always wanted to be on the Delta podcast. I haven't done it yet, so I'm happy to finally get to be here.
Well, first time guest, let's not make it, let's do it again.
I'm in, buddy. I'm talking about ducks and duck calls and everything else, dogs, ducks, and duck calls, and I'm always happy about that.
Yeah, it's one of those things where what I find on these podcasts is there are so many different rabbit holes that I want to jump into, but can't. So the only thing I can do is record more of them so we can cover some of those topics.
Job security.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah, I tell you what, I keep adding responsibilities to my job, and I raised my hand for this one. I think, I'm a biologist. I've been with Delta for 23 years. And so it kind of puts me in a position where, as a hunter and as a conservationist, as a biologist, working with a lot of our programs, I feel like I can chat about a lot of different things, but I have to bring the experts like you on to get it across.
Careful on expert. You know what defines an expert, right?
No.
X means used to be, and a spurt is a drip under pressure.
There you go. Okay, so I don't want to be an expert.
No, me neither.
Yep, let's go inch deep, mile wide. How's that?
There you go.
Well, good deal. Well, thank you. We're at the Delta Waterfowl Expo in Baton Rouge. For the new listener, it's going to be in Oklahoma City next year, so put that on your calendar. Same weekend, that last weekend in July. But great crowd, it's a good time, and a lot of wonderful people.
The crowd has been really good. Even Friday afternoon, there was a few folks in walking around, and I think yesterday everybody I've spoken to on the show floor has had a good show, and today, just coming up here a few minutes ago, as I look out over the show, there's a good crowd, and I think everybody's pretty tickled with how it went.
Yeah, I think so. I absolutely think so. So, Jim, we're going to want to get to know a little bit about you, just so we don't bury it. You're the current VP of Product Design for Drake Waterfowl, is that correct?
Not product design, VP of Development. So I get to work with everybody. I get to be with the product development guys.
Okay.
I get to be, of course, on the marketing, PR side of development, community development, business development, working with other brand partners and other brands. So the cool thing about my job is, other than the logistics of shipping and ordering and that kind of deal, I get to work with all sides of the business. So I really couldn't have landed in a better spot for me.
Yeah, I don't think so, because with your background and extensive experience, you can probably help in every single one of those categories.
I've kind of been the sales guy. I've kind of been on all sides of it. So I get to work with all people. So it's really cool. I enjoy what I do.
That is cool. Absolutely cool. So I think a lot of people know you about your days at Rich and Tone, the television side as well.
Absolutely.
But hey, let's not take for granted that people know who you are. Let's go back. I actually read an article about you.
Oh, wow.
Somebody I can't remember what the article was, but it went all the way back into kind of your younger years and your childhood. And
right.
I thought it was pretty cool. From the little aspect that I really picked on was that you really liked calling, like
yes,
talking with, like you had that curiosity as a young boy.
Call always did. And I was fortunate to grow up in a hunting family, like a lot of folks. My dad hunted, my mom hunted. There was a little age difference between my brother and sister, and I was the youngest. There was times Mom would take me hunting in the morning, and she'd wait for me to come back, and I'd go to school. or I'd go listen to ducks or stuff like that. But calling always intrigued me. So ducks and turkeys are kind of the things I enjoy, and goose hunting too. It's that communication with nature that I like. I mean, don't get me wrong. There's a lot to be said for knowing where to hang your tree stand, hunting a big old buck deer, and just general woodsmanship. I enjoy that also, but it's the communication that always, I don't know what it is. I always really enjoyed that and watching and listening. And fortunate, while my dad worked for a large construction company, we moved around a lot as a kid. We lived in West Kentucky, Tennessee, Southeast Missouri, but grew up in pretty much central the Mississippi Flyway, and Dad loved to, waterfowl hunt and bird hunt, had a pair of bird dogs. I would always be enthralled, be out listening, I remember being at recess one time in grade school, and everybody's doing whatever, and I just happened to look up. For whatever reason, I don't know why I looked up, but I remember this very clearly. I looked up, and there was a pair of mallards headed west towards the river. At this time, we lived in West Paducah, Kentucky, kind of a waterfowl area. And I looked. I remember just sitting there watching them, till I couldn't see them no more. And I was like, "Where are they going? What are they doing? Who are they? What are they? Where'd they come from?" So, what are they saying? And they weren't communicating. They was a high pair of ducks heading towards the river. And I kind of wish I may have followed your footsteps, or if I'd had my buddy Mickey Heitmeyer, if he'd have been around me as a mentor when I was a kid, I may have went that direction. But I don't think my math skills would have let me get through being a biologist. But anyway, I was always intrigued by critters and what they said and how they communicated. And I always kind of had the idea that, people blow duck calls in different ways and different styles and how ducks react to it. And we'll get into all that later. But the good Lord gave them a voice for a reason. They are communicating. So I was always intrigued. Well, what'd they say? What is that hen saying? Or what is that wood duck saying? Or why that turkey gobble? Why this hen yell? What's all that mean? So they have their own language just like we do. So I've always been intrigued by that.
You know, it is that you possess a very valuable quality, is that curiosity, right?
Yeah.
And that's, I think, every hunter hopefully has, a thread of curiosity. I think to be a good hunter, it helps to understand, because wild animals are not that much different than people. If you break us down to the most basic components.
100% agree.
Same deal.
So with that, people talk about calling, and in the old days you heard about the hail call or the greeting call and the comeback call, and really all that is timing. Those aren't necessarily different sounds; it's timing. Contest wise, it's something you put that humans have put on it to try to give it meaning, but really to a duck or a goose or a turkey, it's inflection. Now turkey's got a pretty enamored vocabulary, as do ducks, but when in your world a decrescende, let me say that properly. When she goes hap 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 hap, I've watched the same hen be fast, slow, put a little more into it, put a little less into it. So I talk about inflection.
Sure.
Like dog training. So Joel, if we didn't have these mics on and you were way over there across the show floor, I couldn't go, "Hey Joel," you wouldn't hear me. But if I went, "Hey Joel, hey Joel," over and over and over, you might get my attention. I might get your attention. But so I like to say it like this. So say I hadn't seen you in 10 years, we was old buddies. "Hey Joel, happy to see you. Your mama told you to be home at supper 6:30, and you come riding in on your bicycle at 9 o'clock and all muddy and dirty, and your mama said, 'Hey Joel, are you about to step on a 4-foot long cottonmouth as big as around your arm? Hey Joel, you owe me $100. Hey Joel.'" I said the same 2 words each time, but each time they had a different meaning.
Yep.
So it's my opinion, and I can't prove this, but it's my opinion that critters somewhat communicate. Now that inflection gives meaning.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think they have to, right? Because, when you can't, and I guess that's the big thing about calling. So if you hollered at me across the show floor, I wouldn't exactly know where you're at. Right. I know you were looking for me.
Exactly.
So I'd start wandering to you. And if you kept yelling at me, the closer I got, I might think he's mad at me and I don't want to come around him. So you might change the way you're talking to me just so you can bring me in.
And the visualizing of your mood as you approach me, right? So if, oh, he thinks I'm yelling at him, he thinks, no, I'm not mad at him. I'm just trying to get his attention.
Yeah.
So, and that kind of comes the difference between talking to or talking at someone. So I'll say it like this. There's a difference between calling at ducks and calling to ducks.
Very true. Very true. Yeah, you have to understand what you're doing if you're going to be great at it, I think. Otherwise, you try to memorize what you're supposed to do, but you don't truly understand it.
Exactly. The memorizing, you hear people say, well, okay, I listen to this cassette tape or CD or YouTube channel, and the guy says, okay, at this point, I need to do the comeback call. No, you don't need to do the comeback. You don't need to worry about that. You need to call ducks. It's about communicating. So if they're leaving, you step it up a little bit. If they're coming for you, let off a little. Don't blow them out. You don't want anybody yelling in your face when they get up close to you. Same thing with ducks. Just be easy.
That is good advice. One that I think we all need to follow. We probably, even seasoned hunters, probably forget.
Let me raise my hand and say, going back and watching video, I need to practice what I preach.
Yeah.
I'm
I bet.
The world's worst about it. I like blowing calls. I like calling, and I catch myself a lot of times over calling when I shouldn't. That said, I kind of, I know you need to back off and let them tell you what you need to do. And sometimes that depends on the kind of area you're hunting. If you're hunting crowded public woods in Arkansas, you probably got to stay on them a little bit more to keep them thinking about you, or just the opposite. Once you get their attention, let everybody else blow them to you. But you got to read the birds. It's not about what you say or how you say it. It's when sometimes.
Right on. So how did you turn the outdoor lifestyle into a career?
I got lucky. I worked construction in the past, and I still enjoy working with my hands and doing stuff. And I got hurt, but I had always had aspirations of, man, how do you make a living doing this kind of stuff? Again, I didn't follow the science route, which sometimes I wish I would have had. But I'm fortunate to know a lot of guys like yourself, so I live vicariously through that. But that said, I kind of always, I seen guys say, man, I really enjoyed to be working in the outdoors, and how can I turn this into a living? And I wound up on a pro staff for Primo's Game Calls way back when, and kind of got to trying to learn how the industry worked, and I just kind of kept at it and kept at it and kept at it. And I got a job working for a company at that time. It's called Rich and Tone Products, turned into Buck Gardner Game Calls. It was a royalty company with Butch, and it was my first really sales job in the outdoor industry. And I was just a traveling duck call salesman, pretty much. And that kind of built on that. Wound up in the guide business. Wound up working for R&T Calls when John Stevens bought Rich and Tone from Butch. I was friends with Butch and kind of part of all that. And it just one step at a time. And, wound up now at Drake. And looking back, I've been really lucky. Now, there's a few years, for anybody listening to this that thinks they want to work in the outdoor industry, I worked for nothing for a couple of years, literally nothing, like barely made it. The first year my wife and I were married, we lived off of, I had a bush hog job at the Pine Bluff Arsenal, pulling a 15-foot back wing bush hog, mowing the arsenal every day. And then during duck season, just a day hunting guide service. People pay us, I think at that time, maybe $100 a day, $125 a day per person, and that's how we made it over the course of the year. And then the next year start all over again. So we made it, and now looking back, my college was those years I worked for nothing.
Sure.
And, learning the hard way. I don't recommend doing that.
No, I would imagine, if we talked about everybody's backstory here at the expo, that is on the product side or whatever it may be, there's probably a bunch of lean years on the front end.
Oh, of course.
Right?
I guarantee it. Even you guys, think about those years as you was finishing your master's program and whatnot. You was doing what you wanted to do, but it's pretty slim there for a little while.
Oh yeah. Yeah. My mom, bless her heart, she actually, and I know where it was coming from. It was coming from love, but she said, "Joel, are you really sure you want to be a wildlife biologist? It's tough to get that job, and they don't pay very well." And
Right.
I said, "Mom, all I care about as far as money is if I want to buy a pair of boots that I don't have to budget for it." And I said, "And that's when I'll be making enough money."
Mm-hmm.
so I can buy a pair of boots and I'm happy.
That's right. I get it.
It's a quality of life. And I think that's the same thing, is that there's a quality of life that can be measured with money,
Mhm.
and it can, but I'd rather measure it with, that whole expression, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life.
That's right. I remember in a ag class, I think I was a sophomore in high school, and we had an ag class and an ag mechanics. And in the ag mechanics shop building, there was a sign hung up on the classroom wall. And I may not get this word for word, but it's kind of what I lived by. It said, find something. How did it go? It said, find something that you like to do well enough that you would do it for nothing, but become proficient enough at it that people will pay you for it.
Yeah, yeah.
Something to that effect is what that sign said, and I've never forgotten that. And again, I've been lucky to make a living doing something I enjoy to do. Now, I'm not saying there's not times it's work, because if it doesn't turn into work on occasions, you're probably not doing something right.
Right.
But you enjoy it.
Mhm.
You enjoy the work. It's part of it.
Yeah, yeah.
Especially when you're working on with the land and the birds, and that's the good stuff right there.
That's fantastic. So I do want to kind of get into I want to ask you some questions about calling competitions. I know you've been a champion. Maybe once you're a champion, you're always a champion. Maybe.
I guess that's how it works. I don't know.
Yeah, but
good thought.
But one of the things that has piqued my curiosity about you, Jim, is that you've been described to me as someone who is really good at building relationships between the hunting public and the science or management community. Is that?
That's something I enjoy to do because of my interest in the science, and conservation. I enjoy conservation. I get to sit on the board of up and coming turkeys for tomorrow. I love turkeys. I've, of course, been involved with Delta Waterfowl and Ducks Unlimited for some time, but I do like that part. I like learning from. I mentioned Mickey a minute ago. He's given me an education in and of itself, and Luke Naylor and other PhDs I've been around, and I like being able to understand that at least to a layman's terms, and then try to pass that on to everybody else. I use you fight it every year, right? When the bee pop comes out in the habitat survey, folks say, well, Delta said this, and no, those are all the same numbers. Let's understand. Let me help you understand how this works. And I like being that guy. I like trying to learn, and I like trying to pass that on.
I think it's important because one of the situations, like Luke Naylor, fantastic guy, was a Delta Waterfowl graduate student. Years ago already. The gray hairs are probably showing on both of our heads by now. But it's one of those things where I think it's really challenging for government biologists to stay connected with their hunting constituent. I think and it's wonderful people, but at Delta, being a nonprofit, we are on a minute-by-minute basis connected to where our funding comes from, and it comes from hunters. So I love, I do think that Delta plays an important role being a bridge between the awesome state and federal managers and duck hunters, kind of interpreting. And I think I think you should be proud of playing that role too, because I think it's really important, rather than criticize, let's understand, right?
Well said. Understand, not criticize. There's so many people will start criticizing their state game and fish agencies, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, NGOs like Delta. And Delta does such a great job, saying the hunters organization, y'all do a fantastic job of that. And I like being a part, and then trying to even, I don't want to say dumb it down, it's not the right word, but kind of break it down piece by piece. I may not know all the science, but I know enough of the science that I can kind of pull it down. And I can always go to somebody like you and say, all right, Joel, let's talk about this. How does this work? And then I can get it in my head. And I've always been able to maybe extend that message.
Perfect. Well, keep it up. And if I can help you in any way, shape, or form, or any of our staff at Delta, if you stay curious, and we'll help you.
I like it, man. I enjoy it. I'm looking forward to, everybody's got predictions too, right? All the talk this year, we've had been a drought on the prairies for the past couple of years, and that's the natural ebb and flow. And I've heard people like, oh, we'll never see a 10 million mallard bee pop again ever, and maybe we won't, but I think we will, because if you look at the history, there's some pretty deep dives, but there's been some big climbs. I kind of been wanting to go back and put together a list, and let's look at mallard bee pop let's take from 88 through 93, 94, and just see boy, how it really climbed, and it fell off and come back again. Just, let's have hope here a little bit.
Yeah.
But at the same time, let's be concerned.
Mhm.
So there's a lot going on, I think, right now amongst the waterfowling community. We know it was dry when they flew the transects, so we know that May pond counts is probably going to come in pretty low, and BPOP will probably, there's a lot of people guessing or betting, man, no matter it's going to go below 5 million, or they're going to be above 5. Where are we going to be? And then there's all this late rain. What happened with that? So I think anecdotally, I'm hearing some good second, maybe even third nesting attempts. I'm hearing about.
Yeah.
But in the big picture, that's not going to. How's that really going to affect population dynamics? So there's all that floating around out there too.
Yeah, I guess for the listener, yeah, it started out really dry. We had, for a North Dakota resident, we had a beautiful winter. Hardly any snow, really warm. So it was a great place to live. The winter before, holy cow, there was a lot of snow. But that doesn't make for great duck breeding habitat a winter like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we went in pretty dark, but then, boy, we've just gotten consistent moisture. But you're right, a lot of the ducks had already migrated and settled, so the table was set.
Right.
But it did improve, and so you're right, that can stimulate that renesting effort. But now, hey, right now, today, we're in the really important brood rearing season.
Mm-hmm.
So, the mama ducks hatch their nests. They have to get those ducklings to fledge into adulthood. And that does rely on good water conditions.
So that's definitely helping. The late water's
Mhm.
been effective somewhat.
Yep. So, I'd say it's not all bleak. And, when I came down here a few days ago, we're still getting that moisture. It's hot, though. So,
So I've seen that y'all were hot.
Yeah,
100
actually,
degrees.
Yeah, in North Dakota, it was hotter in North Dakota than it was down here in Louisiana.
Isn't that crazy?
Doesn't
How
happen
often
that
does that happen?
Not very often.
No.
So, hey, let's take that turn.
Okay.
Just because there was a big duck calling contest or competition here,
Mm-hmm.
how did you get into the? How does one decide I want to enter a calling contest?
That's a really good question.
Yeah.
For me, it kind of ties back into that outdoor industry occupation.
Mhm.
Of course, I enjoyed guiding, enjoyed calling, and I looked up as a kid, looked up to guys that, man, that dude won a world championship or he won a Grand National Turkey Calling Contest. And, again, the curiosity of what makes them tick. How were they able to do that? Or, man, that guy's got a lot of talent. And I liked calling. Grew up in a hunting and fishing family and liked messing with calls. And I really enjoyed calling and, again, communicating with critters. And then there's, this is way before social media ever happened. So how do you do that, and how do you make friends? So you go to contests,
Okay.
and you get buddies, and sure, you're competing against each other, but part of the contest deal for me coming up was we was all buddies. You'd pick at each other and whatnot, and you certainly wanted to win or you wouldn't be there. But hey, if your buddy come out on top or you screwed up, good for him, and that's kind of long-term friendships for me. That's kind of was a stepping stone into the industry somewhat, and then after I finally won a world and my goal was to win it. I've got buddies like my buddy John Stevens won the world 3 times. Once I won, I didn't know what to do. I just like calling ducks. So my fire for competing kind of went out. Yet because duck hunting and duck calling has been so good to me in my life and my career, I like giving back and helping out with running contests. And I'm about to where I want somebody else to take over a few of them, but I enjoy running contests and helping things out. So when the Delta convention started, 3 years ago?
Yep.
I was doing a contest with a friend of mine named Heath Van Lanningham called the World's Cutdown Championship. Now we'll get into the difference in what's what eventually. And we hosted it in conjunction with the Delta convention in Little Rock. Had great success. Had a lot of people come to it. It's a good event. Last year we had like 50-some callers in it. So Brad Heidel asked me about moving the World Cutdown to here. Now, when you get into duck calls and duck call styles and duck calling, there is some regional differences in calling.
Okay.
And while the cutdown style call was kind of known here, once you got in South Louisiana, it was more cane calls and double reeds and stuff like that, whereas the true modified old style stuff was Northeast Louisiana, Arkansas. I said, well, man, we don't feel good about moving the World Cut Down to Baton Rouge. A lot of our callers may not follow it that far, but I said, had the idea, said, let's do something different. I said, what do you think about, let's do this. I help you run it. We'll call it the Grand National Double Reed Duck Calling Contest. You have to use a double reed to compete in this event. Kind of like the cut down world, you have to use something, either a modified oat or something based off a modified D2. It has to come from that DNA. So everybody seemed to like the idea. So yesterday we had the first ever inaugural Grand National Double Reed Duck Calling Contest that is owned by Delta Waterfowl, and it will follow this event wherever it goes. It will always and forever be here as long as y'all run this event. And to my knowledge, and I may be wrong here, but to my knowledge, it is the only duck calling contest in the country that in the rules you have to blow a double reed duck call. So I visually looked at every one of them. I want the top reed or the bottom reed at least be half as long as the bottom reed or the top reed. That's so, because some people will try to call it a double reed, but they may cut that top reed way short, and it loses the attributes of a double reed duck call. Now it gains some other attributes, but there's a give and take there. So I really wanted people blowing an absolute double reed. So with that, we had a couple iconic double reed call makers here. Rod Hadel from Hadel Game Calls, Justin Martin from Duck Commander, Sean Stahl from RNT. Were just some of the judges that really understood what a double reed duck call should be like. So I was pretty excited about that. Now, we may not have had the biggest group ever. We had 18 callers, which is decent, but we had a great crowd of folks watching, and I mean they were watching. That was cool, and I think in time it'll gain traction and build up. So if you compare that with what we call the Main Street World Champion, the main World Championship in Stuttgart, that's kind of developed its own style and sound over time. I kind of feel this will too. So it'll be fun to see what happens.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you for helping out with that. And it does sound like a kind of a who's who of judges there. I wasn't able to take it in and listen, but yeah, 18. That's a good start.
That's a good start. There's nothing wrong with that at all. And good prizes. Benelli was behind it. Winchester was behind it. Kent Cartridge was behind it. Drake Waterfowl, we provided some prizing. It's a good event.
Yep, I did see a guy. I haven't caught his name yet, but I did see a guy walking around with a trophy.
With a big trophy. Seth, the gentleman who won was Seth, not Russell, but Roussel.
Okay.
That's how he said. He's from this area somewhere, did a great job.
Well, now, Seth, if you're listening to this, you have to travel to Oklahoma City next year to
Oh, yeah, he's got to come defend his championship.
You have to, or retire a champ. Well, let's go back to once a champ, always a champ.
That's right. It's kind of like a college education or high school diploma. Once you got it, can't nobody take it away from you.
Nobody can take it away. Yeah, no, that's great. So for the listener, I think if you're really interested in this particular podcast, you're probably a little bit more fluent on duck calls and contests, but single reed, double reed, cut down. Can you describe some of the differences there real fast?
I can. I wish I'd have thought and brought some calls with me, because even though this is people are listening, being able to show you would make it even easier for you to understand it. But in today's nomenclature of calls, you hear people talk about J-frame duck calls and cut-down-style duck calls. And there's several different variations of all of that. A cut-down-style call, let's define that. So that's really based off of a modified D2 oat. Now, there's three general versions. There's the original, which was a round hole. Then the mold didn't work, so they put a key slot in it to make it easier to get in and out of the mold. So that's what you hear people say, a keyhole oat, which is still a D2. And then what we might call the new style or round hole D2 oat. So those became very popular in the lower Mississippi Valley, MAV, green timber duck hunting, Arkansas, northeast Louisiana, Mississippi. People would modify those oats. One, they were easy to get. They were inexpensive. And folks would work on the tone board and change them up to make them blow better for them or make them like it better. So some of them out of the box weren't so great. So people would retune them or modify them, and then that terminology got turned into cut them down.
Gotcha.
And some folks they'd hack off the front of the tone board, and just some would cut them on a hard 45-degree angle. Some people my style is more just changing the radius, and of the whole tone board. But that's basically, when you talk cut down duck call, it's something that either is a modified old or a call that was made after using the dimensions of one of the D2s. So that's where cut down comes from.
Gotcha. So is there still a tradition of people? So that was all. People started doing it on their own, and it became a bit of a, hey, this is awesome, and you should try it.
Yep.
But now you buy them that way, right?
Correct. So it kind of got to the point where it's still, people will bring them to you to. I hate to use the term cut them, because it's so easy to say. It's really a modification of the tone board or retuning. But there's several people around the country who's got pretty good reputations about, man, send it to this guy or that guy to have him cut it, but then, other companies started building it. Kind of a funny story here. When I was at R&T, at that time, they weren't building one. Of course, Rich and Tone had a great reputation in the call making world, and we had hosted a pro staff hunt, and it was a good year. We had good water in White River bottoms. So John was taking some folks to his farm and reservoir, and I was taking folks to White River bottoms. And, I'd always blow my old in the woods, that just they produced a little different sound, a lot more bass. I think the sound carried better. Ducks reacted really well to them at times. And that was kind of the start of it through the 70s, 80s, 90s, kind of guides were building reputations, blowing them. But I digress, getting into one of them rabbit holes. So I'd be blowing this and that, and I'd switch to my old, and we'd get back, and one of the guys said, man, I don't know what that funny looking black call Jimbo was blowing, but man, them ducks really liked it. And John Stevens, the current and at that time owner of R&T Calls, Richstone Calls, he told me, he said, look, if you didn't work here and wasn't such a good friend of mine, I'd bust that thing in a million pieces. I said, well, hell, let's just make one. And that became the R&T Mondo series. And then we got several different ones of all the different Mondo series. They're basically different tune jobs. So that was kind of the beauty of the D2 olds. You might do one a certain way and say, man, that way Joel cuts them, I really like that. And Jimbo over here, man, his is a little different. So you can make several different models, but it goes all based off of the same platform. So that's where the Mondo LT, Mondo LA, Mondo 2B, Rock and R, that's where all those different ones come from. And that's just R&T's lineup. I'm not familiar with everybody else's. Rolling Thunder built several good ones based off of that same platform. So that's kind of the cut down deal. And it's become very popular in the past few years, and been proud to be a part of it. But like everything, it's not so much evolution sometimes as it is revolution. Yeah. So the cut down style D2 oak call was very popular. Like I said, from the heyday of duck hunting in Arkansas through now, kind of got to the point that you knew everybody who blew one. There's half a dozen guys in Biometer, Cache River Bottoms, or White River Bottoms. You knew who they were that was blowing them, and it kind of grew from all that. So now everybody's kind of going back to what you call your basic shorter reed J-frame call or Arkansas style call. And when you look at the differences there, if you can compare them, if you centered up off the cork slot, if you look at, I'm more familiar with R&T calls, so I'm going to use their models, but if you compared an original R&T to a D2 old, and you centered up on the cork slot and looked at the length of the tonal bore and the tone board, not the exhaust bore and tone board, if you center them up, you would not see that the R&T original had a much longer exhaust bore and a much shorter tone board. Oh, and while the overall length of the end piece might be longer with the R&T, the old would use a longer reed and thicker reed. So those dynamics change a lot of the way the call operates and sounds. So that's where a lot of the differences come from. And both are good or bad, and that's just the evolution of duck call making, right? As guys, we're looking at this or that. Hey, what happens if we make the bore longer and the tone board shorter? Does it blow easier? Can we get more out of, that's just evolution, just building stuff. So nowadays, that's pretty much the difference. Guys carry different ones, or they'll carry both. And then you get into Louisiana style calls and the floating wedge block system. There's three pieces there that all have to work together. That's another different design. So that's just all for communicating with a mallard duck. Most duck calls are made to hopefully imitate the sounds of a mallard hen.
I always think of that hunting season. it's a long period of time, but in the grand scheme of a year, it's quite short. So it just kind of it's fun to me just to see how different people fill their year, not actually hunting, but you're spending time thinking about hunting, preparing for hunting.
And you asked about contest stuff a minute ago, and that's also part of it. It extends your season, right? It's another. Here it is, late July, the dog days of summer, and we have people interested and excited about blowing duck calls. It's hot time of year, but it's that time of year we're approaching fall and thinking about it. But to your point, that's a lot of what keeps duck hunters going during the year, messing with duck calls, decoys, duck boats. Well, I guess we're a bunch of gear junkies.
Pretty much, and very innovative too. Like, yeah, I'm out hunting, and man, I just wish I had something like this, right?
Mhm.
And so the early folks made it, right?
Yeah.
And then somebody made it for themselves, and then they started making it to sell.
Kind of the same deal. Said, man, did you see that deal Joel built? Man, that's pretty dang handy. I'd like to get one. Hey, will you build me one of them? And then next thing you know, hey, I'm building a few of these. So let's turn this into a business.
Yeah, yeah.
And here we go.
I've always blown a double reed, and I found it for me easier than a single reed. But let's put a single reed, double reed, and a cut down. How would you describe them to like one easier? What situation would you pick a different call?
You know that a lot of that's personal. And that's that you bring up an interesting thing. So you can take a modified old style, cut down style call and double reed it. There's several of those blowed yesterday. You can put it 2 reeds in any call, and that will change its personality. So the top reed somewhat suppresses the bottom reed, but then they work in conjunction. So what makes it easier, your mechanics don't have to be as spot on.
Okay.
You know, you can put a little more air on a double reed, but you can also blow them easier because you can kick one reed will kickstart the other one. So that's why a lot of people think they're easier, and you get some great sounds, but you don't get as much range.
Okay.
So if you I say that there's some guys yesterday got a lot of range out of them, which is pretty cool. But if you think about let's say a 1 to 10 scale, a good double reed will get you 1 to 7, 1 to 8 as far as ranges from clean, smooth to rasp. Whereas a single reed will get you a little higher up and sometimes a little more bottom.
Okay.
You know, a little bit looser for, some of those really contented kind of sounds. That said, again, a good double reed will do that also. But they have a little different feel to them. Duck calls have personalities, and I think the beauty of it and what keeps us in the duck call business alive is everybody's chasing the magic flute. And you like a call to blow, it's got to be a lot of feel. It feels right to you. One of the beauties of working in a duck call shop and tuning a bunch of different styles of duck calls, you finally get past that feel where you just you know what you're tuning and for what the reason is. Whereas a lot of guys, man, it just don't feel right to me. It's kind of I don't like that. It just doesn't feel right. I get it. There's so much about the call that you blow. It's your old friend. You know it. You don't have to think about it.
Right.
You pick it up and blow it. You learn in time tuning a bunch of different models that let's work on our mechanics is everything. And that's just a different level of learning. So as you compare each one of them, just a basic J-frame single reed, J-frame double reed, or cut down style call, they all have a purpose. I carry just one style with me. I'm not a guy that carries a whole neck full of duck calls. Now I may have a couple spares. I want to try this or try that. But as far as generally speaking, I carry 2. And they're both pretty similar, where I know people that have all kinds of different stuff. Now, I may adjust the way I blow, or I may see weather conditions. I go, I'm just going to take this call in the morning. Say it's going to be warm and foggy, and we're hunting stale ducks, and we ain't got a fresh push, and we're hunting the same ducks. So I'm going to kind of back off and go pretty easy on them, versus, man, we'll have a good cold front day, sunshine, the wind's blowing, it's cold. Going to have some high trading ducks a little bit. We're going to
got to be able to reach them.
I want something I can get up there and reach them with. So that use them as a tool, applied tool, right? So you don't want to put a old pair of channel locks on a good bolt that you don't want to round the nut off of. Kind of do
right.
Use the right tool for the right job.
Right. So what niche would you put the cut down calls in?
See, a cut down call tuned proper
can do it all.
Cover it all. Now, most folks don't think that. They think most people, the general consensus would be that's that loud, high duck breaking, sunshine, big wind, big water in the bottoms, high ducks in the woods kind of thing. For me, done properly, it's their best attribute is finesse. And during the World Cutdown, we'll throw a scenario at them. Last year we did, we'll throw something at it like that, and people are like, what the heck? That's not what it's for. But if you have a well-tuned cut-down style call, you ought to be able to get absolutely quiet on it.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard they require more air.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
A lot of people think that. Again, that goes back to that longer reed and thicker that we talktalked about. But again, tuned properly, you ought to just be able to pick it up and just literally naturally exhale, and the reed should vibrate. That's all it should take. Now, that said, you can put a pile of air on it, and I think that's where people get the idea that, they're for being loud. Now, they are, and you can put one set right. You can back up and rear down on it and not overblow it. And that's where I think a lot of people think they can take more air, kind of like a double reed. You can set a double reed up, or even any single reed where it's just so hard to blow you can't hardly make it do anything, or vice versa. You can shorten a reed on any of them and make it super easy. And then the bore length and bore width have a whole lot to do with the sound. And part of a cut-down style call is it's a wide bore, short, and straight. And I'm getting out of my wheelhouse here, but I've heard or read something from sound engineers. If you look at sound waves and how they're made, if it's a tapered bore, like the Glodo version, you heard the story about the guys digging the well, not being able to hear them. But in a tapered bore, as that sound goes out that bore, the sound will get wider. On a straight bore, they stay the same. It's kind of like think of a choke tube on a shotgun, full, modified, improved. That wider bore, those sound waves get bigger on the way out. Now, I don't know if that makes them louder at distance or not, but the way I kind of read it was the straight bore, it carried better. And I think that was some of the reason of the old, and they had a lot of bass to it. So I use this as another example. Place I used to live was set, I don't know, 3/4, half a mile off a pretty major highway. And I could hear ducks in the back of the field. You hear ducks chattering on the south end of the field, a half mile away. But you could also, if you were sitting out there cooking or whatever, if you heard somebody coming up the highway playing the radio loud with a lot of bass in it, you could hear that bass way before you even knew they were coming.
Yep.
And I think that's the idea of a cut-down style call, has a lot more bass in it because of that longer reed, and it carries further. Just my opinion.
It makes sense. It absolutely makes sense. I had this thought that I can't escape the thought, is that you've spent so much of your life with a gun in your hand shooting ducks, but then also, I mean, how many thousands of duck calls have you tuned and blown on? It's amazing that you have your hearing left.
If you talk to my wife, she'd tell you I don't have any left. But I still hear fairly well for all the shotguns and duck calls, but I can tell the difference, at times. But I've blown on a lot of calls, shot a lot of bullets. So yeah, you're right. And it does affect your hearing. I will say this to young guys that are practicing duck calls, goose calls, especially spec calling and Canada calling, that practice in their truck. And I used to do it too, right down the road, and you stop somewhere and your ears are ringing. That's detrimental to your hearing. I used to be bad about I'd hold one hand behind my ear to pick up more sound, just to try to, so much is feel, and that was a part of it, especially contest calling. Don't do that. Now, it's hard to blow with earplugs in, because you kind of learn to feel more than hear at that point in time. But I do recommend guys, if you're getting started at this, when you do practice, find a place to practice to where, sure, you want to hear it, but let that sound out of there.
That's good advice. I did the same thing. I think I became, to my degree of proficiency with a duck call, driving back and forth, to college.
Yeah.
Head back home and hunt with Dad on the weekends, and
yeah.
Got a lot of road time. Now it's people do podcasts, I guess.
Oh yeah, that's me. I catch myself traveling. Not that I dislike music, but I'll find a podcast I want to listen to, and if I'm really listening to it and the phone rings, I'm like, God dang it, I was listening to that.
Yeah.
Don't interrupt me.
Yeah. Hey, one of the things that I've also heard about you is that I think a lot about the future of hunting. I think a lot about hunter recruitment, and I've heard about you that you from time to time will hold a clinic to teach people how to hunt? Is that something you still do, or is that something that's more?
So yeah, somewhat, yes. So can't remember his name that worked with y'all. We did the Delta mentored hunt deal a few times in conjunction with the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Cache River Refuge.
Okay.
And I still like doing that. And we'll get together with, do an organized youth hunt.
Mm-hmm.
Did not do one last year, but yeah, I always like kind of passing it on a little bit. When you look at it from the business side of things, what we sell last year, 1.2 million federal duck stamps, somewhere in there, probably not way off. And some of those were sold to bird watchers to get on refuge ground.
Right.
And then you think about, okay, some of these guys, they got to go on one duck hunting trip a year. Where's the next batch of waterfowl scientists coming from? Where's our next batch of people on the industry side, duck calls and firearms and apparel and gear side come from? You got to have a little interest in both sides there. How are we going to keep that alive? How are we going to keep this moving forward? And understanding just the basic of the North American wildlife management plan.
Mm-hmm.
Just how we manage wildlife in the USA. How are we going to keep that going?
Mm-hmm.
And you look at, Pittman Robertson funds and where everything comes from, and all these folks out here that are investing in their passions, and all these people building products. If we don't keep this alive, it's eventually going to be gone. Now, it's not going to go away tomorrow.
Right.
But if we don't think about 50, 100 years down the road, where's it going to go?
Well, at some point, if we lose hunting, there will be a singular moment that it disappeared. But it'll have died a death of 1,000 cuts. But there'll be a moment, and so I applaud. The other thing that I heard is that during some of your when you engage in those, hunting ethics that's a boy.
Well, you can get out there in that one. I used to teach some hunter ed classes, and we'd talk about ethics a lot. You'd use a parallel about here's this family that's trying to make it on their own, a small farm, and they may go shoot a deer to put food in the freezer versus a guy that goes and shoots a nice buck at night and just cuts his antlers off. What's the difference in that? For you and I, we're like, oh, we understand you want to put a little meat in the freezer, got to feed the family, that's okay. But just to go shoot a nice buck at night for taking it away from the resource, it's not right. Or then you'd use the one about, here's a farmer and his deer eating all of his soybeans. What's the ethics in trying to keep that from happening? And then as you carry that further into hunting public ground duck woods in Arkansas, and I'm sure you hear all the horror stories, and I've lived it. And everybody wants to have a good hunt. We all like to see ducks come through the trees. But I think sometimes people get so caught up in such a hurry to have to get there, have to be the right spot. Some guys call it the season of hate. Screw those guys and whatnot. We got to find ways to get along a little more. Sometimes you talk about that death of 1,000 cuts. One of those cuts is not sticking together. Everybody in here we're here because we enjoy waterfowl for one reason or another. We got to find a way to work through some of that, and it's really bad on some of our public grounds. So I try to get the opportunity to talk to guys about, hey man, it's not always about how many. It's not always about how fast you get there. It's about playing the game. Granted, don't get me wrong. I want to hang my 4 green tops on the strap when I come out, but I'm going to put my ducks in the boat box. I don't want nobody to see them. How'd you do, Jim? Hi, we shot a few. And I'm sticking to that. But at the same time, I like to talk to folks about, look, guys, let's enjoy this for what it is. The opportunity that we get to spend in God's great outdoors around these trees, all this cool stuff we get to use and be a part of. Let's enjoy doing that. And it's not so much about beating your neighbor. Granted, you don't want them in your way and you don't want to get in their way, but let's all get along.
Yeah, you'd mentioned something with the calling competition part of the world. I'll just, because I lost for words there. You're saying friendly competition. It's okay to have friendly competition hunting too.
Oh yeah,
bunch of guys going in on public ground doing your thing. Who did it better, right?
Oh, and there's that, and
That's
I think
fun,
it's just
But there's a difference of stealing spots, sky busting,
Yes.
intentionally setting up to mess up somebody else's hunt.
Yeah,
That's different.
It's different, and
That's
there's
different.
no sense in that, and there's it happens. I don't know if you ever get it out of the way, but if we don't talk about it
Mhm.
as duck hunters, and I'm going to say somewhat self-police it, but if we don't talk about it out loud, opportunities like this podcast that people can listen to, and maybe somebody go,
Might think twice.
might think twice about that. Yeah, I don't, let's work together, not against each other.
Well, that is a tough thing. It's I think all of us have a competitor inside, some
yeah.
more than others, but the folks that want hunting to go away love to see us fighting with each other.
Love it.
Absolutely love it.
You bet. And we got to pay attention to that this day. And I can only imagine it could get worse, depending on what the political climate changes to in the future. I don't know. But there's a lot of people that don't understand what we do.
Mhm.
And as urban America gets bigger, rural America gets smaller,
Mhm.
less of us, it starts shifting. And they just don't know. So because they don't know, they may think, well, guns are bad. Going hunting is bad, and they're killing animals. Well, it's not. I can see how if you don't understand what we do, how you just don't understand it. You don't know what you don't know. So that's another reason to try to educate folks that may not come from our kind of background.
Right.
And it's going to get more important as we move forward. So we got to keep that out front. We got to get along. We don't want those folks, man, all duck hunters, they just fighting amongst each other. We're going to do them a favor and we're going to shut it off.
That is actually, you don't want to lose votes that way. That's for sure.
So I'm cognizant of it. I try to tell folks, look, of course, in our part of the world, everybody hunts and fishes, and it's common to see people, wearing hunting clothes, whatever. And there's other parts of the world, you go in somewhere wearing camouflage. Oh, look, you're trying to be invisible, or they don't understand.
Mhm.
But I try to tell guys, look, if you go in somewhere and you've been hunting, you got your hunting clothes on, be polite. Don't be trashy. You're not only representing yourself, you're representing the hunting culture in the U.S., every one of us.
Mhm.
So if you go somewhere to eat, just be polite and act right, do the right thing.
Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for being such a great ambassador and trying to bridge that gap between hunters and non-hunters. And I think it's valuable. We all need to do our part. The university hunting program that Delta has, we go into the colleges, the wildlife colleges, and most students going to wildlife, getting wildlife degrees now, don't hunt. They don't come from a hunting background.
Scary.
70 to 80% of today's wildlife management students don't come from a hunting background. They come into this program, and we see it every year. So it's in my face, and it's so rewarding. They come in going, yeah, I'm not really sure that I like hunting, but hey, I'm going into this field, I should try it. And they come out the other side going, wow, I thought hunters were bad people. You're great. I thought I was going to really hate hunting. How can I go again? Right?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, I think we can all do our part. We all should do our part. And I think you're doing some of the best work out there.
We'll try. Thank you for that. I see what you're talking about. One of my good friends is the Great Lakes Regional Coordinator for Ducks Unlimited, Jamie Rader. And when he's going through his master's program, he was interning with me during duck season, helped me run a duck guide business. But he was telling me then in his master's program how many of the kids were not hunters, didn't come from it. And nowadays, George Duncan folks at Five Oaks Ag Research are doing a program, applied science program, with kids that's coming out of UAM, University of Arkansas Monticello, Doug Osborne's program, and putting them on the farm, putting them on managing the duck club, getting their hands dirty, working with equipment. They know it from the book side, but don't have an understanding of, well, that's what a disc is. Well, how do you drive a tractor? The applied science of what we do, and then getting them in the woods, getting them hunting, teaching them the hospitality of it. And to your point there's a couple of those kids come through the program that weren't hunters, but now truly love it. That's a good thing. We need more of that.
It is a good thing. It is a good thing. So, well, thank you, Jim, for your time. I tell my kids, I tell my friends, I've said it on this podcast, the most valuable thing that we have is our time. So I thank you for sharing it with me.
You bet, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we covered a pretty good swath.
Yeah, we went down some rabbit holes.
Yeah, came right back out. So, well, I hope you've enjoyed your time here. Thank you to Drake Waterfowl. Thanks for your support, your leadership. better see you in Oklahoma City.
I expect we'll be there.
Right on. Thanks, Jim.
bud. You bet.
All right. Take care.
Yes, sir.